You know what's funny about Gen X? Nobody talks about them. Boomers get blamed for ruining the economy. Millennials get blamed for killing napkins. Gen Z gets TikTok fame and existential dread. But Gen X, they're just quietly sitting there, saying nothing, building wealth, and nobody really notices. While everyone else is arguing about avocado toast and student loans, Gen X is over here with paid off mortgages, solid 401 keks, and almost zero social media presence. They're not posting about it. They're not flexing. They're just winning. And today I'm going to show you exactly how they're doing it. Because here's the thing, they didn't get lucky. They didn't inherit some magical economy. They figured out something every other generation keeps missing. And if you're a millennial or Gen Z drowning in debt, this might actually change how you think about money. Who is Gen X anyway? Let's be clear about who we're talking about. Gen X, born between 1965 and 1980. They're roughly in their mid 40 to late 50 right now. Too young to be boomers. Too old to be millennials. The forgotten middle child of American generations. They're the latchkey kid generation. The MTV generation. The generation that came home to empty houses because both parents were working. Nobody hovered over them. Nobody optimized their childhood. They just figured things out. And that mindset matters more than people realize. Because while boomers got pensions and cheap houses, and millennials got student debt and the Great Recession, Gen X got something different. They got timing, not perfect timing, just enough of it. The timing advantage. Gen X bought houses before things went completely insane. If you were a Gen Xer who bought a home around 2000, you might have paid something like $150,000 for a place that's now worth $400,000 or more. That's not genius. That's timing. But here's the real advantage. They refinanced during the 2010s when interest rates were historically low. So now they're sitting on a 3% mortgage on a house they bought 20 years ago that has doubled or tripled in value. Meanwhile, millennials are trying to buy that same house today for over $400,000 at 7% interest. Same house, different universe. But it wasn't just housing. Gen X started investing in their 20 seconds and 30 seconds, right before one of the longest bull markets in history. If you invested in the S&P 500 index in the mid-90s and simply stayed invested, your money had decades to compound. And the most important part? They didn't constantly touch it. They didn't have trading apps in their pockets. They weren't checking their portfolios every 5 minutes. They set it up and they left it alone. Turns out that was the winning strategy. The debt difference. Here's where the gap really starts. Gen X came out of college with far less student loan debt. A lot of them graduated with something like $10,000 or $15,000. Not fun, but manageable. Compare that to many millennials starting adult life with $30,000, $50,000, or even six figures. That difference completely changes your early financial life. When a Gen Xer got a first real job, they could actually save something. When a millennial gets their first job, a huge chunk of their paycheck is already spoken for. That breathing room mattered, and Gen X used it. They bought the house. They started the 401k. They built the emergency fund, not because they were smarter, because the math worked. The boring money strategy. Here's something nobody likes to hear. Gen X stayed boring. They didn't do crypto. They didn't day trade. They didn't jump on every new financial trend. They put money into their 401k. They bought index funds. They opened IRAs. They waited. That's it. No hacks. No shortcuts. No financial gymnastics. Just automatic, boring, consistent investing. And it worked. Not because it was exciting, but because it ran for decades. Time did most of the heavy lifting. Gen X didn't get rich fast. They got rich slowly. So slowly that nobody really noticed. The career advantage. There's another reality nobody wants to admit. Gen X is in their peak earning years right now. They're not entry level. They're not trying to prove themselves. They're the managers, the directors, the people running teams. That matters. A person in their late 40s or 50s with 25 years of experience simply earns more than someone in their late 20s. That's how careers work. But here's the real advantage. Their income is peaking right when their expenses are starting to drop. Their mortgage is halfway paid off. Their kids are out of daycare. Some are done paying for college. That combination, high income and lower fixed expenses, is the wealth building sweet spot. Gen X is living in that window right now. What Gen X knows that you don't? Here's the real secret. Nobody cares about your lifestyle. Gen X figured this out early. They don't post their vacations. They don't flex their cars. They don't show off their kitchens. They just live. And because they're not trying to impress strangers on the internet, they don't spend money trying to look rich. They drive older cars. They stay in the same houses. They take the same simple vacations. And while everyone else is upgrading everything, they're quietly building net worth. There's a concept called hedonic adaptation. You get used to almost anything. That new car feels amazing for a few weeks. Then it's just your car. That nicer apartment feels exciting for a month. Then it's just where you live. Gen X learned to stop chasing that feeling. They found a lifestyle that worked and they stayed there. No lifestyle creep. And boring consistency over 20 years builds real wealth. The things they sacrificed. Now let's be honest. Gen X didn't win at everything. A lot of them are burned out. They've been in the same career for decades. They don't love their jobs, but they stay because the paycheck matters. The health insurance matters. The retirement plan matters. That's not glamorous. It's just real life. They also sacrificed experiences when they were young. While other people were backpacking through Europe or taking gap years, a lot of Gen Xers were just working, saving, paying bills, building stability. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Now that many of them finally have money, they don't always have the same energy they had at 25. That's the trade nobody really talks about. You can have freedom when you're young and broke, or security when you're older and tired. Very few people get both. Gen X mostly chose security. What Millennials and Gen Z can actually learn. So what do you do with this if you're not Gen X? First, stop blaming timing for everything. Yes, housing was cheaper. Yes, college was cheaper. Yes, the economic environment was different. But you can't change any of that. You can only control what you do now. Here's what you can steal from them. 1. Automate your money. Gen X isn't more disciplined than you. They just removed the decision. Set automatic 401k contributions. Set automatic Roth IRA contributions. Set automatic investing. Make it invisible. 2. Stop trying to look successful. Every dollar you spend trying to look rich is a dollar that can't build real wealth. Gen X chose wealth over appearance. You can make the same choice. 3. Play the long game. You're not going to get rich in 2 years, but you can build serious wealth in 20. The path is boring, but it works. 4. Stop chasing shiny objects. Crypto, day trading, the next hot strategy. Gen X mostly ignored all of that. They bought diversified funds and waited, and they beat most people trying to be clever. 5. Get comfortable being uncomfortable now. Living below your means. Driving older cars. Skipping upgrades. Gen X spent years being uncomfortable so that later life would be easier. You don't get the outcome without the trade. The uncomfortable truth. Here's the part nobody wants to hear. Most people aren't going to do this. They're going to keep upgrading their lifestyle. Keep chasing quick wins. Keep spending first and hoping to save later. And in 20 years, they'll wonder why they're still stressed about money. The answer will be simple. They chose comfort now. Gen X chose security later. Neither choice is morally better, but you don't get both. The real lesson. The real lesson from Gen X isn't timing. It isn't luck. It's systems. They build boring, automatic systems early. Then they let those systems run for decades. You can still build those same systems today. You can still automate saving. You can still invest consistently. You can still live below your means. You can still play the long game. And if you do, in 20 years, you'll be the quiet winner. Not because you were special. Because you were boring. Because you were consistent. Because you built systems and didn't quit on them. Final thoughts. Gen X is winning at money. Not because they're smarter. Not because they worked harder than everyone else. But because they had just enough time, just enough opportunity, and just enough discipline to take advantage of it. They bought when housing was reasonable. They invested before decades of compounding. They avoided crushing debt. And they stayed boring. No tricks, no shortcuts, no viral strategies. Just slow, consistent, disciplined wealth building. And while everyone else is distracted by the next shiny thing, Gen X is quietly sitting on paid off houses and growing portfolios. So the real question is simple. Are you going to learn from them? Or are you going to keep doing what everyone else is doing and hope it somehow works out differently?